Welcome to Conversations with HJM. I'm Lisa Harris-Jones.
And I'm Tommy Tompsett.
And today we have the Chair of the House Environment and Transportation Committee, Marc Korman. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
So you've been a part of the General Assembly for 10 years, and now in this position as chair. Tell me a little bit about what that's been like.
It's definitely a very different way of being a member of the House of Delegates. All 10 years have been great, all 10 years have been different, but this is like a totally different kind of sport. I describe it to people as going from the dead ball era in baseball to the late 90s in terms of the hitting. It's just a very active, meetings every day, often from you and your clients. Lots of work groups and task forces that are always going on, different commissions and things, and then trying to work through bills ahead of time. So when we get there in January, we've given things the sort of scrutiny and diligence they need to pass good policy and help us achieve some of our goals for the state.
I know that housing affordability is something that's important to you, and it's something that we see in your committee, with that being the Committee of Jurisdiction over Housing Matters. Can you tell us a little bit about what we can see in the future and what you're working on?
Sure. So, the committee has a few sort of big issues we're working on, big goals we have, and one of them is to try to address housing affordability. 2024 was extremely active in that regard. The governor sort of declared at the housing session, and he had a package of 3 bills that all went through the committee, including the most significant one, which affected allowing density bonuses in sort of different areas where we want to concentrate housing growth, including around transit stations, on state-owned property, things like that, where we can hopefully deal with what we view as sort of a shortfall in the amount of housing we have, which over time will help address the pricing issues. We also passed tenant legislation to help our tenants, including raising the filing fee for evictions, because what we were finding was happening was many landlords were using the eviction process as sort of a collection agency to get people to pay rent. And that's not really appropriate for that process. That should be a process you use when you really need to get a tenant out, not when you're just trying to get some back rent. And so we've sort of made that process more in line with some of our neighbors. Actually, we had one of the lowest rates in the country for those fees. So we're trying to do a lot to help people who are renters, help people who want to be buyers, and create more opportunity for people to be able to afford to live in a home.
And if housing wasn't a big enough issue, you were leadership when the House passed the Climate Solutions Now Act. Very aggressive goals, 2030, 2035, 2040 with regards to reducing greenhouse gas emissions. Now you're the chairman of the committee that's going to really oversee the implementation of that. How do you envision kind of rolling out the Climate Solutions Now Act to actually hit those benchmarks?
Yeah, I mean, I sort of joke it'd be nicer to have been chair when we set the goals than we're actually trying to reach the goals, because it's a challenge, frankly. We've done a lot in Maryland already. We are already halfway to, I think it's our 2031 goal of reducing from our 2006 emission levels by 60%. Net zero by 2045. We're halfway to the sort of interim goal there, but that means we've sort of done a lot of the things that are kind of easy, and now we're on the hard things, right? Which is taking a look, for example, at our housing stock, our building stock rather, not just housing, and put in place what are called building energy performance standards. Well, that's going to require going to a lot of old buildings and replacing their boilers and making them more energy efficient, and that's going to be expensive and a challenge. The administration has identified a $1 billion a year gap and the funding we need to actually implement all that. And so there's a lot of work to do to figure out how we're going to help people make these adjustments that are going to be necessary to reach these climate goals, which of course are particularly important for Maryland. We have so much waterfront and so much happening on our waterfront that we need to make sure that we're doing our part for this obviously global struggle to deal with climate change.
I know that roadway safety is important to you. Tell me about Vision Zero.
Yeah, this is another one of our state's major goals. I think in 2019, the General Assembly sort of set this goal of getting to Vision Zero, which means no roadway deaths, right? Last year we had almost 600 roadway deaths. We're pacing a little bit better this year. Obviously, we're only about halfway through the year, but there's a lot of work to do. There's a lot of ways to get at that issue. Some of it, of course, is just engineering the roads a little bit differently to make sure that people take the cues to slow down or watch for pedestrians, watch for cyclists. There's also more we can do on the enforcement side, particularly automated enforcement. We passed a bill from the administration this year. The lieutenant governor was really the leader on this, that took a look at our roadway workers, which are particularly at risk. They're often working on highways where people are driving very fast, and we put in new rules around the automated enforcement we have, and that's to try to send people the message that you need to slow down and be careful when you're going through these construction zones, and think about, it's not just about where you want to go, although obviously that's important for you and your family. All the people around you, though, are relying on you to be safe, and that keeps us all safe.
Our Transportation Trust Fund, it's got some deficiencies. It looks like it's kind of coming woefully short of some of the aspirations that we have with investment through that fund. You were the person last session to really start the conversation around how we can bolster the fund. Do you think that conversation will continue this session, and have you heard of any good ideas in the interim that might be part of that discussion?
Yeah, I think it will continue. What really started the conversation last year was not me. It was the administration announcing what the cuts were going to be if we didn't take action, and we did take some action last year to try to plug some of those holes. They were going to cancel all commuter bus service in the state of Maryland. We were able to keep that from happening. They were going to cut highway user revenue, which is our state gas tax dollars that go back to our counties and municipalities. We were able to prevent that. But we're going to be right back in the same boat, because what we did last year was important, but it was just sort of patching one hole in the ship. When the draft transportation budget comes out September 1st, I think that's going to be a trigger for people that we need to get serious about this if we want to have the kinds of infrastructure that I think most Marylanders are interested in. They want the roads to be paved, they want their bus to show up on time, and of course our Transportation Trust Fund covers everything. So it includes the airport, the port, the MVA, all of these different modes. And so I think that conversation is going to continue. We did sort of extend the life of kind of a blue ribbon commission that was put together. It's known as the Train Commission, to try to address this issue, but I think there's going to be a lot more discussion on it. And unfortunately, there's not an easy answer. Frankly, we did a lot of the easy work this past year, looking at some of the low-hanging fruit. If we're going to be serious about this, we need to come up with some, frankly, tougher solutions to try to figure out how we're going to fill this hole. And of course, we also need to look at what we're investing in. We have to look at, both sides of the ledger and decide, which projects, which programs are we really committed to, and which do we need to sort of let go by the wayside as we sort of tackle this challenge.
Understanding that you have a busy schedule, is there anything else that you'd like to share with our audience before we let you go?
I would just say it's a great team on the Environment and Transportation Committee. We're about 20, I think we're 23 members now, multiple subcommittees. We have a new subcommittee leadership, Delegate Robin Lewis, returning to the Committee for Health and Government Operations. We're lucky we have the Speaker Pro Tem on the committee, Dana Stein. We have Ann Healy, the Chair of Rules. We have Delegate Vaughn Stewart, one of our great housing experts, leading one of our subcommittees, Marvin Holmes, who I know you work with, who's another great housing expert we have helping to lead the committee. So we've got a great team, and of course the vice chair of the committee is Baltimore's own Regina T. Boyce, who's doing a terrific job. So it's a great team. Really excited to tackle some of these challenges we just discussed here in the 2025 legislative session.
Well, thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
And thank you for joining us on Conversations with HJM.